So it's finally time to replace this old planter. It has been here for 17 years probably. So it's done really well, but it has fallen apart. And since I don't want to move all the dirt, I'm just going to build a planter box that will go around what's existing there. So my first step will be to measure the size. I might make it a little bigger and add more soil actually. I need to decide what type of wood, something I already have on hand, and then which saw I'm going to use to create it. More to come. So I decided to use a skill saw on this project as opposed to the table saw because the piece of plywood was so big and I just thought it would be a little much for me to try the first time on my table saw. So I used, like I said, the skill saw out here in the shade, and I decided to make these 18 inches by 22 inches, just a little larger than the original planter box. So since the plywood gets all chipped up as you use it, at least mine does, I decided to give it a rough sand before I put it together. Now that I have my pieces cut, I'm using 2x4 treated 2x4s for the corners. Now it's time to get them put together. I'm going to use some screws for this, and then I'm going to be painting it, so it doesn't matter to me that it might be a little bit rough. We'll see how it goes. For the small trim, I'm using my compound miter saw. It's just smoother, easier, perfect cuts. I love it. So as you saw in the picture earlier, when I was working on the trim, I decided to bring my work table inside since I would be cutting a lot of trim and using my nail gun to put it on. So you can see I have trim along the bottom, and that's because that plywood is porous along the bottom. I wanted to put a little corner molding there to protect the bottom of it because it's going to be close to the soil. And then I just trimmed it out to cover the nail holes, and now I've caulked it, and I'll give it a little bit of a sand, and then I'll put a couple coats of paint on it, and it'll be ready to go outside. Well, okay, here it is, the planter with 2 coats of paint, and as you can see, I'm going to need more on the trim that is vinyl. I had this on hand, and now I'm not so thrilled that I used it, but I think it'll be okay. I'll just put an additional coat on, and then it will be ready to install. I also painted the inside a little bit because the soil won't go all the way to the top. I need a second coat in there. All right, third coat is on. I'll do touch-ups after I get it installed. So here is where the existing planter is, right outside the garage. So now my chore is to tear that apart. I don't think I'll have an issue because obviously Mother Nature has started that. So I put this out yesterday, and right afterward it started storming, and this little area right around here was flooded. So I came out and added this little taped on this little container and had it flow down into the yard instead. And I get out this morning, and of course it's all gone. Look at this. These must come from the roof. Gonna have to clean that out. Anyway, it worked all right. It survived the rain, and it just poured and poured and poured.